My name is Gina Dalton. I've spent 48 years in a patriarchal family where daughters were raised to serve and sons were raised to inherit. That curse followed my daughter, too. 15 years ago, my father called a family meeting and demanded I hand over Lily's college fund, $50,000, to pay for my brother's gifted son to attend Yale. "He's going to Yale," my sister Pamela hissed, her face inches from mine. "Your kid is average. She'll end up exactly like you, a nobody." Then she spat in my face. Not a metaphor, real spit, sliding warm down my cheek. The room went silent. My father watched from his armchair and said nothing. Last month, at the family reunion, my average daughter descended from a helicopter onto that same man's front lawn, and what she placed into my now homeless sister's trembling hands. Every person in that room is still talking about it. Before I tell you what Lily brought that day, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story speaks to something in you. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. To understand the weight of that helicopter moment, I need to take you back to where it started. A house where I learned early that my worth had an expiration date, and my dreams were just currency for someone else's future. The Dalton family home sits on 3 acres outside Savannah, Georgia. A white colonial-style house that's been in my father's family for 4 generations. Spanish moss drapes from the oak trees like ghostly curtains, and there's an American flag on the front porch that my father replaces every 6 months, whether it needs it or not. Inside, the dining room tells you everything you need to know about Harold Dalton's world. There's a mahogany table that seats 12, polished so bright you can see your reflection in it. But here's the thing, only one chair has armrests. That's my father's throne at the head of the table. The rest of us sat on identical wooden chairs, though my brother Vincent's was always pulled closest to Dad, always. I'm the oldest of 3. Vincent came 2 years after me, the golden child, the heir, the one whose name my father said with pride. Then Pamela, 5 years younger than me, spent her whole life trying to be the daughter Dad actually wanted. And me? I was the ghost in family photos. I'm not exaggerating. Walk into that house today, and you'll see the wall in the hallway lined with frames. Vincent's high school football championship. Vincent's business school graduation. Vincent's first car dealership opening. There's even a framed newspaper clipping from when he made the local business journal's 30 under 30 list. An honor that lasted exactly 2 years before his dealership went bankrupt. My frames? There aren't any. I graduated valedictorian of my high school class. Top of my nursing program. 25 years of service awards from Savannah Memorial Hospital. But those achievements never made it onto that wall. Nursing, my father once said, swirling his Woodford Reserve bourbon, is just glorified maid work with a stethoscope. That wall taught me something early. In the Dalton house, accomplishments don't count unless you're born with the right anatomy. People assume I became a nurse because I couldn't do anything else. That's what my father thinks. That's what Vincent tells his wife when they need someone to feel superior to. The truth? I chose nursing because I wanted to spend my life actually helping people, not just talking about helping them. I've worked the emergency room at Savannah Memorial for 25 years. I've held the hands of people taking their last breaths. I've told mothers their children would survive. I've been punched, bitten, screamed at, and thanked in the same shift. I've saved lives, hundreds of them probably, while my brother was busy losing other people's money in failed business ventures. But none of that matters to Harold Dalton. My marriage didn't help my standing either. I married young, 22, to a man named Craig who promised me the world and delivered an empty apartment. He left when Lily was 3 years old. Ran off with his secretary. Classic, right? He never paid a dime in child support. Just vanished, like I was a chapter he could tear out of his own book. My father's response? Should have chosen better. That's what happens when you marry beneath your potential. As if I had any potential in his eyes to begin with. The only person who ever believed in me was my grandmother, my mother's mother, Margaret Brennan. She died 20 years ago, but I still wear her watch. It's nothing fancy. Timex, silver band, scratched face. She wore it every day for 40 years. Gina, she told me once, when I was crying over another of my father's dismissals, the world will try to make you feel small. Don't let it. Your worth isn't determined by blind men who refuse to see. I didn't know then that she'd already taken steps to protect me, and Lily, from beyond the grave. Let me tell you about two children who grew up in the same family tree, but might as well have been raised on different planets. Marcus Dalton, Vincent's son, was tested as gifted at age 6. My father nearly threw a parade. Suddenly, every family dinner became a showcase of Marcus's achievements, his IQ scores, his chess tournament wins, the private tutors Vincent hired at $200 an hour, the prep school with a $40,000 annual tuition that had a crest on the blazer. Marcus wore that blazer like armor, navy blue with gold-embroidered threading. He'd sit at family dinners right next to my father, and they'd discuss the future of the Dalton legacy like they were planning a dynasty. Then there was my Lily. She went to public school, wore t-shirts from Target, did her homework at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner after 12-hour shifts. Her grades were good, B+ average, sometimes A's, but nothing that made headlines. At family gatherings, Marcus got the seat of honor. Lily got tucked away at the kids' table in the corner, even when she was 16 and Marcus was 17. Even when she was taller than half the adults in the room. That boy is going to put the Dalton name on the map, my father announced one Thanksgiving, raising his glass toward Marcus. Then he glanced at Lily picking at her mashed potatoes. What's your girl doing these days, Gina? Still average? I watched Lily's shoulders stiffen. She didn't say anything. She never did. Just kept her eyes down and her mouth shut. I wanted to scream. Instead, I squeezed her hand under the table. Everything changed the spring Marcus turned 18, the day that cream-colored envelope arrived from Yale University. I still remember the phone call. Vincent's voice cracked like he was announcing the second coming. He got in. Marcus got into Yale. Full acceptance. Not waitlisted. Accepted. Within 2 hours, the whole family had gathered at my father's house. Someone brought champagne, Dom Perignon, the fancy stuff my father only opened for real occasions. And I mean real occasions, not birthdays, not anniversaries. He opened Dom Perignon when Vincent's first dealership got approved for a business license. He opened it when Marcus won the state chess championship at 14. He'd never opened it for anything I'd done. That night, I watched my 76-year-old father cry actual tears of joy as he embraced his grandson. A Dalton at Yale, he kept saying. Finally, a Dalton at Yale. Marcus stood there in his blazer, accepting the praise like it was his birthright, which I suppose it was. But here's the part nobody was talking about. Yale costs money. About $85,000 a year for tuition, room, board, and fees. 4 years meant $340,000. And Vincent? Vincent was broke. I didn't know the full extent then, but the whispers were hard to miss. His third business venture, some kind of car detailing franchise, had collapsed 6 months earlier. He'd already sold his vacation condo in Hilton Head. He and his wife Barbara had quietly moved from their 5-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom rental, which they explained away as downsizing for convenience. But champagne was still flowing, and my father was still crying, and nobody wanted to address the elephant in the room. We'll figure out the money, Vincent said that night, his arm around Marcus's shoulders. This is too important. We'll find a way. Looking back, I should have known that way would involve me. The call came 3 weeks later. I was at the hospital just finishing a double shift. 2 cardiac arrests, 1 stroke, 1 teenager who'd wrapped his car around a tree and somehow walked away with a broken arm. My feet ached, my back screamed. I wanted nothing more than to go home and collapse. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. My father never called me. Not on birthdays, not on holidays, certainly not on random Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Family meeting, he said when I answered. His voice was the same tone he used when announcing Thanksgiving dinner times. No greeting, no small talk, just commands. Sunday at 2, the house. Don't be late. What's this about? You'll find out Sunday. He hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I called Pamela, hoping for some information. "Oh, this should be interesting," she said, and I could hear the smirk in her voice. "Just show up, Gina. You'll see." Something cold settled in my stomach. Before I went to bed, I opened my closet to find a dress for Sunday, and my hand brushed against the fireproof lockbox on the top shelf. Inside were the documents I never really thought about: Lily's birth certificate, my divorce papers, the deed to my small house, and a manila envelope from the law offices of Robert Whitmore, my grandmother's will. I hadn't opened it in years. I knew what was inside, the trust fund she'd set up for Lily's education, but it felt like ancient history now. Lily was 18, about to start community college in the fall. The trust would help with that. I almost put the box back without opening it. Almost. But something made me pull out that envelope. Something made me check the documents were still there. Grandmother's last gift to us, witnessed and notarized. I didn't know yet how much I'd need it. Sunday arrived like a sentencing hearing. I drove Lily to my father's house, both of us silent for most of the 30-minute trip. She stared out the window at the Spanish moss and the grand antebellum homes, her jaw tight. "Mom," she finally said, "do I have to go? Your grandfather specifically asked for you." "He's never specifically asked for me in my entire life." She wasn't wrong. The Dalton house was already full when we arrived. Vincent and Barbara sat on the leather Chesterfield sofa, looking uncomfortable. Marcus stood by the fireplace in a Yale t-shirt he'd already bought, though classes wouldn't start for months. Pamela and her husband Richard occupied the love seat, and Pamela shot me a look I couldn't quite read: satisfaction, anticipation, and at the head of the room, in his wingback chair beneath the oil portrait of his grandfather, sat Harold Dalton. "Everyone's here," he announced. "Good. No greeting for me, no acknowledgement of Lily, just business." My father launched into a speech about family legacy, about the Daltons' long history in Georgia, about how Marcus represented the future of everything we've built. His voice swelled with pride when he talked about Yale, the prestige, the connections, the doors it would open. Then he got to the point. "The problem," he said, "is funding. Vincent's had some business setbacks, temporary, but the timing is unfortunate. Yale expects the first year's payment in August." He turned to look directly at me. "Gina, I know you have money set aside for Lily's education, $50,000 if I'm not mistaken." My blood went cold. How did he know the exact amount? "That money," he continued, "would cover Marcus's first year. After that he'll have scholarships, work-study, loans, but we need that first year." "Dad," I started. "Let me finish." His voice was iron. "Marcus is going to Yale. Your girl is going to community college. It's simple math, Gina. That money would be wasted on her." Beside me, Lily stopped breathing. The room closed in on me. Vincent leaned forward on the sofa, his rehearsed compassion dripping like honey over broken glass. "Gina, we know this is a big ask, but you're the older sister. You've always been the responsible one. Marcus's future, the family's future, depends on this." "You've always been so practical," Barbara added, her pearl necklace catching the light. "Surely you understand that some opportunities can't be wasted." I looked at my father. "That money isn't mine to give. It belongs to Lily." "Lily." Harold said her name like it was a mild inconvenience. "Lily is going to community college. Maybe she'll transfer somewhere after 2 years. Maybe she'll get a job. Either way, she doesn't need $50,000 for that." "Marcus tested in the 99th percentile," Vincent pressed. "He's going to be a lawyer, maybe a senator someday. The connections he'll make at Yale." "And what about Lily's connections?" The words came out before I could stop them. "What about her future?" Pamela laughed. Actually laughed. She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, her designer blouse stretching tight across her shoulders. Gina, be serious. Lily's a sweet girl, but she's ordinary, average grades, no special talents. She's probably going to end up exactly like you, working some thankless job, living in a little house, wondering what could have been. Lily made a small sound beside me, like a wounded animal. That's enough, I said. Is it? Pamela stood up, walking toward us. Because I don't think you understand what's happening here. Dad is giving you a chance to be part of something bigger, to contribute to this family for once in your life. And you're going to sit there and say no? Because of what? Pride? Richard, Pamela's husband, stayed silent. He always stayed silent. Marcus was examining his fingernails. Barbara was studying the ceiling. And my father simply watched, waiting for me to break. If you don't do this, Harold said quietly, you're not welcome in this family anymore. The room held its breath. Everything that happened next plays in my memory like slow motion. Pamela stepped closer, her heels clicking against my father's hardwood floors. Her face was twisted into something ugly, years of resentment, jealousy, and something else I couldn't name. You've always thought you were better than us, she hissed. The martyr, the saint, working your little nurse job, raising your little average daughter, acting like you're above all of this. Pamela, I never— You know what you are, Gina. She was inches from my face now. You're selfish. You've always been selfish. Mom left you that money because you manipulated her, just like you manipulate everyone. And now you won't even share it with your own family. That's not— I never finished the sentence, because Pamela spat in my face. Not a figure of speech. Not an exaggeration. She gathered saliva in her mouth and spat directly onto my cheek. The room went silent. Not shocked silence. Complicit silence. No one moved. No one said, "That's too far." No one handed me a napkin. I felt the spit sliding down my face, warm and humiliating. Lily was crying. Soft, quiet tears streaming down her cheeks as she stared at her aunt in horror. I didn't wipe my face. I know that sounds strange, but I wanted Lily to see. I wanted her to remember this moment, to remember exactly who these people were, what they were capable of, how little they thought of us. You deserved that, my father said from his chair, for disappointing this family. I turned to look at him. My father, the man who raised me, the man who was supposed to protect me. He was examining his bourbon glass, completely unmoved. That was when something inside me shifted. Broke, maybe. Or finally came together. I reached into my purse and pulled out a handkerchief. Slowly, deliberately, I wiped Pamela's spit from my face. I folded the cloth neatly and placed it on the coffee table. Then I stood up. That money, I said, and my voice didn't shake. I made sure of it. Doesn't belong to me, and it doesn't belong to you. My father's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Grandmother Margaret's will. The name hung in the air like a grenade. My mother's mother had never been Harold's favorite subject. Grandmother didn't leave me $50,000, Dad. She left it to Lily directly, in a trust, a legal trust, managed by an independent trustee at First National Bank. I don't have access to it. I can't withdraw it. I certainly can't give it to Marcus. Vincent was already sputtering. That's ridiculous. There must be a way to— There isn't. The trust is irrevocable. The only person who can access that money is Lily, and only for her own educational expenses. It was witnessed by Eleanor Brennan and notarized by the state of Georgia. Every document is on file with Robert Whitmore's law office. I turned to Lily and held out my hand. She took it, her fingers trembling. We're leaving now, I said. And I want to make something very clear. I looked at my father, at Vincent, at Barbara and her pearls, at Pamela, who was wiping her lips like she could erase what she'd done. Don't contact me again. Don't call. Don't write. Don't show up at my house. As of this moment, I have no family. My father's face went purple. If you walk out that door, I'm already gone. I walked out. Lily followed. Behind us, I heard shouting. But I didn't look back. I never looked back. The drive home was the quietest 30 minutes of my life. Lily stared out the window, tears still drying on her cheeks. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Neither of us spoke until I pulled into our driveway. Our little 3-bedroom house with the creaky porch and the garden I never had time to tend. "Mom," Lily finally whispered, "are we ever going back?" I turned off the engine, sat there in the darkness of the car. "No, sweetheart, we're not." She nodded slowly, like she already knew. Like part of her had always known it would come to this. The years that followed were exactly what my father predicted, and nothing like it at all. There were no Christmas cards, no birthday calls, no invitations to weddings or graduations. When Pamela's daughter got married, I found out from a Facebook post. When my father had a minor heart attack, no one called. I became a ghost. We both did. Our little house felt bigger without the weight of their expectations. Quieter, too. I worked my shifts at the hospital. Lily finished high school. We had dinner together most nights, something we'd never done when I was constantly driving to family obligations, constantly trying to earn approval that would never come. "It's just us now," Lily said one night, setting the table with our mismatched plates from Goodwill. "Is that enough?" I looked at my daughter, 18 years old, average grades, no trust fund beyond grandmother's modest gift, no connections, no legacy. "It's more than enough," I said. And I meant it. Losing my family hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. But keeping my integrity, teaching my daughter that some prices are too high to pay, that was the only inheritance I could give her that truly mattered. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. If you've ever been the black sheep of your family, the one who was always overlooked or underestimated, drop a comment below. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this, and if this story is resonating with you, maybe hit that subscribe button? Only if you want to see how this all ends. Now, let me tell you what happened during those 15 years of silence. I'm going to be honest with you. Those first years weren't some inspiring montage of triumph over adversity. They were hard. Grandmother's trust covered Lily's tuition at the local community college, but just barely. There wasn't enough for a university, not the kind with dormitories and meal plans and study abroad programs. So Lily lived at home, took the bus to campus, and worked part-time at a coffee shop between classes. I picked up extra shifts whenever I could. Night shifts, holiday shifts, the ones nobody else wanted. I sold my Honda Accord and took the bus for 2 years until I could afford a used Toyota with 120,000 miles on it. I canceled the cable, stopped buying new clothes, learned that rice and beans could be made interesting with enough creativity. Sometimes, late at night after a brutal ER shift, I wondered if I'd made the wrong choice. What if I'd given them the money? What if Lily had gone to community college anyway, and I'd kept my family? What if being loved, even conditionally, was better than being right? But then I'd remember the spit sliding down my cheek, the silence in that room, my father's face as he watched and did nothing. And I'd remember why. Lily never complained, not once. She studied at our kitchen table, the same table where she'd done homework since she was 6. She transferred to the state university after 2 years, commuting an hour each way because it was cheaper than housing. "Mom," she told me once, exhausted after an 8-hour shift at the coffee shop followed by a night class, "I'm going to make something of myself, not to prove them wrong, just to prove myself right." I believed her, I always had, but I had no idea what something would turn out to be. News from the Dalton family reached me the way gossip always does, through people who couldn't help but share. Eleanor Brennan, my grandmother's oldest friend and the witness to her will, stopped by my house every few months. She was in her 70s now, still sharp as a tack, and she had a network of old church ladies who knew everything about everyone in Savannah. "Marcus dropped out of Yale," she told me over tea one autumn afternoon, about 5 years after that family meeting. I set down my cup. "What?" Couldn't handle it, apparently. The pressure, the workload. Who knows? Vincent's been telling people he's taking a gap year to find himself. Eleanor's voice dripped with the particular satisfaction of someone who'd seen this coming. That gap year is now 3 years long. I didn't feel happy about it. Not exactly. But I didn't feel sad either. And Vincent? Sold another house. Third one, I think. Barbara's been spotted at consignment shops. Eleanor shook her head. That boy never learned how to hold on to money, just learned how to spend it. What about Pamela? Eleanor's expression shifted. Something like pity crossed her face. Richard left her, took everything, the house, the savings, even the dog. She's been couch surfing with friends last I heard. I should have felt vindicated. Part of me did, but mostly I just felt tired. Your father still thinks Marcus will find his path, Eleanor added. He's been saying that for years now. Every time I see him at the pharmacy, he talks about Marcus like he's about to cure cancer. And me? Does he ever mention me? Eleanor hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. No, Gina, he doesn't. I nodded. It hurt less than I expected. While the Dalton empire quietly crumbled, something else was quietly being built. Lily graduated from State University with a 3.5 GPA. Not summa cum laude, not Phi Beta Kappa, nothing that would have impressed my father. She got a job at a small tech company, doing customer support. Entry level, $32,000 a year. It's not glamorous, she admitted, but they said I can learn programming on the job. She did more than learn. She devoured it. I'd come home from late shifts and find her hunched over her laptop at 2 a.m, lines of code scrolling across the screen. She'd converted her bedroom into a workspace, walls covered with post-it notes about something called algorithms and sustainable energy grids. I didn't understand any of it. There's this hackathon next month, she told me one night, barely looking up from her screen. Teams compete to build apps that solve environmental problems. Winner gets seed money from a venture capital firm. Are you going to enter? She finally looked at me. There was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before, a fierce, quiet determination. I already did, Mom. I built an app that tracks carbon footprints for small businesses, shows them exactly where they're wasting energy and how to fix it. Did you win? No, she smiled. But one of the investors asked for my card, said he wants to keep an eye on me. I didn't know what that meant, not then. But I remember thinking that my daughter, average Lily, Target t-shirt Lily, community college Lily, had a fire in her I'd never seen in Marcus, despite all his IQ points and private tutors. Mom, she said, turning back to her laptop, I'm not smart like Marcus, but I work harder than anyone I know. That has to count for something, right? Sweetheart, I said, smart without work ethic is just wasted potential. You have both. I realize now I should tell you the full story of Grandmother Margaret's gift, because it wasn't just money, it was a message. Margaret Brennan had been a school teacher for 40 years. She never made more than $35,000 a year in her life. She drove the same Ford Taurus for 20 years. She clipped coupons. She made her own clothes. And somehow, through decades of discipline and compound interest, she amassed $80,000. Her will, drafted by Robert Whitmore and witnessed by Eleanor Brennan, was specific. Almost prophetically specific. $50,000 went into an irrevocable educational trust for Lily. The trustee was First National Bank, not me, not anyone in the family. The funds could only be released for tuition, books, and educational expenses, verified by receipts. No one could touch it, not Harold, not Vincent, not even me. The remaining $30,000 went into a separate emergency fund, also for Lily, to be released when she turned 25. But the part that still makes me cry was handwritten in my grandmother's shaky script at the bottom of the will. To my granddaughter Lily Dalton, the only quiet kindness in a family that forgot how to be kind. I leave this trust, to be used solely for her education and future. May it give you what they never did, a chance. My grandmother had seen it all coming. The favoritism, the dismissal, the way my father would always choose sons over daughters, gold over steady, flash over substance. She protected Lily before Lily even knew she needed protecting. Eleanor confirmed all of this when I finally asked, years later. Your grandmother rewrote that will 3 times, she told me, making sure it was airtight, making sure Harold couldn't get his hands on a single penny. Some angels don't have wings. Some angels have notarized documents. The phone call came 5 years before present day. I was getting ready for a night shift when my cell buzzed with Lily's name. Mom. Her voice was strange, shaky but bright. Something happened. My nurse instincts kicked in. Are you hurt? Are you okay? I'm okay. I'm more than okay. She took a deep breath. Do you remember that investor from the hackathon? The one who kept an eye on me? Vaguely. He just offered me $500,000. I sat down on my bed. I'm sorry, what? It took an hour for Lily to explain it all. The pitch meetings, the business plan, the prototype she'd built on nights and weekends while working her day job. The app she'd created had evolved into a comprehensive energy management platform for businesses. One investor saw the potential, then another, then a venture capital firm called Greenlight Partners. They want me to quit my job and do this full time, Lily said. They're calling the company GreenPath Technologies. They think it could be big, Mom, really big. I didn't know what to say. My daughter, the average one, the overlooked one, was being handed $500,000 to chase a dream I barely understood. What do you think? She asked, suddenly sounding like my little girl again. I think your grandmother would be proud. GreenPath's first 3 years were brutal. Lily worked 18-hour days. The company nearly folded twice, once when a key engineer quit, once when a promised contract fell through at the last minute. She lived in a studio apartment and drove the same old Honda Civic I'd given her when she graduated. But she never gave up. Year 4, GreenPath signed a deal with a major supermarket chain to retrofit all their stores with energy-efficient systems. That deal was worth $47 million. The invitation arrived in a cream-colored envelope with my father's address embossed on the back. Heavy cardstock, formal font, the kind of stationery that costs more than my grocery budget. You are cordially invited to the Dalton family reunion. Saturday, October 15th, 2:00 p.m. I stared at it for a full minute before I realized my hands were shaking. 15 years. 15 years of silence, and now this. An engraved invitation like nothing had ever happened. Like they hadn't spat in my face and cut me out like a tumor. I called Eleanor immediately. Did you get one too? I did. Harold's been having health problems, heart, mostly. Word is he wants to make amends before it's too late. She paused. I think his version of amends is getting everyone in the same room and pretending the last decade and a half was just a misunderstanding. I'm not going. I don't blame you. But 2 days later, Lily called me. Mom, I got a letter from grandfather. Throw it away. I already opened it. She was quiet for a moment. He wants to meet. Says he's heard things about me. Wants to see what I've made of myself. The nerve. The absolute audacity. You don't owe him anything, I said. I know. Lily's voice was calm. Too calm. But I want to go. There's something I need to do. Lily, I'm not going for him, Mom. I'm going for Grandmother Margaret. And maybe, she hesitated, maybe for us. To show them what average looks like 15 years later. Something in her tone made me pause. My daughter wasn't asking for permission. She was informing me of a decision. What exactly are you planning? Come with me, she said, and you'll see. I didn't know then what she had in store, but I knew my daughter. Whatever it was, it would be worth witnessing. 3 days before the reunion, Lily showed up at my house with a leather briefcase I'd never seen before. We need to talk, she said, setting it on my kitchen table. Inside the briefcase were documents, stacks of them, articles of incorporation, tax exemption certificates, board meeting minutes, all bearing the name Margaret Brennan Foundation. You started a charity? I asked, flipping through the papers. 6 months ago. It's a 501(c)(3, fully registered with the IRS. $5 million in initial funding. Lily sat down across from me. We provide scholarships and vocational training for women in difficult circumstances, single mothers, domestic abuse survivors, women who've lost everything and need a second chance. My throat tightened. You named it after grandmother. She gave me a chance when no one else did. This is her legacy, Mom, not mine. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was 33 years old now, CEO of a company worth $200 million. But sitting at my kitchen table in jeans and a simple blouse, she could have been 18 again. There's something else, Lily said, her voice careful. I've been doing some research about Aunt Pamela. My stomach dropped. What about her? She's living in a women's shelter in Savannah. Has been for almost 2 years. She lost everything when Richard left. No job, no savings, no family willing to help. I thought of Pamela's face 15 years ago. The contempt, the spit sliding down my cheek. I want to offer her a spot in the Foundation's training program, Lily continued. 6 months of accounting certification, job placement assistance, and transitional housing, all free. After what she did to me? This isn't about forgiveness. Lily's eyes were steady. It's about being better than them. That's what grandmother would have wanted. My average daughter, my extraordinary daughter. The day of the reunion was unseasonably warm for October, 80 degrees with a sky so blue it looked artificial. I drove to my father's house alone. Lily had insisted on arriving separately, though she wouldn't tell me how. Trust me, she'd said, with that calm smile that had started to make me nervous. The Dalton property looked different than I remembered. The oak trees were the same, draped in Spanish moss like always, but the house itself seemed smaller. The paint was peeling near the gutters. The lawn wasn't quite as manicured. Signs of decay. Signs that even the mighty Daltons couldn't hold back time. About 30 family members milled around the backyard. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Aunts and uncles who'd never bothered to take my side. Long tables were set up on the lawn, covered with white linen tablecloths and catered food that looked expensive but probably came from Costco. I spotted Vincent immediately. He'd gained weight, and his suit didn't quite fit right, too tight in the shoulders, straining at the buttons. Barbara stood next to him in last season's dress, her pearls looking duller than I remembered. And there was Marcus. God, Marcus. He stood in the corner near the hedge, wearing a wrinkled Oxford shirt with the collar askew. His hair was unkempt. He held a beer like a lifeline and stared at his phone, avoiding eye contact with everyone. 33 years old, no job, no direction. The genius who peaked at 17. My father sat in a wicker chair on the patio, looking frail in a way I'd never seen before. 76 years old, oxygen tube in his nose, blanket over his legs despite the heat. He saw me and his eyes widened slightly. I nodded once, didn't smile. Then I heard it, a sound that didn't belong in suburban Georgia. The thwup 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 of helicopter blades. Every head in that backyard turned upward. The helicopter appeared over the tree line, sleek and black, an Airbus H-130 that caught the afternoon sun like polished obsidian. It circled once, twice, then began its descent toward the only open space large enough to accommodate it, my father's prized front lawn. "What in the hell, see?" Vincent started. The wind from the rotors whipped the tablecloths. Napkins flew like startled birds. Women grabbed their hats. Men shielded their eyes. My father struggled to stand, clutching his oxygen tank. The helicopter touched down, its blades slowly spinning to a stop. The door opened, and Lily stepped out. She wore a slate gray suit, Armani, I later learned, though she'd tell me she bought it secondhand from a consignment shop. Her hair was pulled back in a clean chignon, simple diamond studs in her ears. No ostentation, just quiet, unmistakable success. She walked across the lawn toward us, and I watched my family's faces cycle through shock, confusion, and something that looked like fear. "Who is that?" someone whispered. Is that, is that Lily?" Vincent's mouth hung open. Barbara clutched her pearls, genuinely clutched them, like a cliché come to life. Marcus had finally looked up from his phone, and his face was the color of old paper. My father stood frozen, one hand on his oxygen tank, staring at his granddaughter like she was an apparition. "Hello, everyone," Lily's voice carried across the lawn, calm and clear. "I hope I'm not too late." She walked past the gaping relatives, past the catering tables, past Marcus who couldn't meet her eyes. She stopped in front of my father. "Hello, grandfather." Harold Dalton looked at the helicopter, at the suit, at the diamond earrings, at the woman his bloodline had dismissed as average for her entire life. "You're—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Lily smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was the smile of someone who no longer needed anything from the person in front of her. "I'm Lily Dalton, CEO of GreenPath Technologies, and I believe we have some things to discuss." Harold reached out, arms open for an embrace. Lily took one step back, not dramatically, not rudely, just a boundary, a line drawn in the air between them. "Grandfather," she said, her voice steady, "I didn't come here to reconcile, and I didn't come to make a scene." "Then why—" Harold's voice cracked. He looked old suddenly, smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Why did you come?" "I came because of Grandmother Margaret." The name landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of discomfort spread across the gathered relatives. "She believed in me when this family didn't," Lily continued. "She left me a trust that paid for my education, an education you wanted to take away. She saw something in me that none of you bothered to look for." Vincent stepped forward, finding his voice. "Now wait a minute, we never said—" "Uncle Vincent." Lily turned to him, and something in her expression made him stop mid-sentence. "I remember exactly what was said. I was there. I heard every word. I watched you demand my college fund for Marcus because I was average and going to community college anyway." She looked at Marcus, who had retreated further toward the hedge. "And Marcus, I'm not here to humiliate you. What happened to you isn't your fault. You were raised to believe you were special without ever learning what to do when special wasn't enough." Marcus said nothing. His beer trembled in his hand. Lily turned back to Harold. "Grandfather, you called me average 15 years ago. And you were right. I am average. I don't have Marcus's IQ. I wasn't a prodigy. I was just a girl who worked hard, failed often, and got back up every single time." She paused. "That's the difference between us and them, you know. We learned how to fall. They never had to." "Can I be honest with you for a second? This is the moment I've been waiting to tell you about. If you're still here, watching, you're my kind of person. Someone who believes that hard work beats entitlement. If you want to see what Lily did next, something no one in that family expected, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you don't want to miss this." Lily walked toward Marcus. He flinched like she might hit him. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. Then I remembered how he'd sat in his Yale t-shirt that day, examining his fingernails while his aunt spat in my face. "Marcus." Lily stopped a few feet away, giving him space. "I heard you've had a difficult few years." His jaw tightened. "I don't need your pity." "Good. Because I'm not offering any." The backyard was silent now, 30 relatives watching like spectators at a car crash. "I'm offering you an opportunity," Lily continued. "My foundation, the Margaret Brennan Foundation, has a program for career transitions, 6 months of training, mentorship, job placement assistance. It's designed for people who need a fresh start." Marcus's face cycled through emotions, confusion, anger, and something that might have been hope before he smothered it. "You want me to go to some charity program? I went to Yale." "For 2 years, 9 years ago." Lily's voice was gentle but firm. "Marcus, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to help. The program is free. The only requirement is showing up and doing the work. I don't need— The offer stands. Lily turned away from him, leaving the choice hanging in the air. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready. I watched Marcus's face as she walked away. He was 33 years old, wearing a shirt that cost more than my monthly grocery bill despite being unemployed for years. His hands shook as he raised his beer to his lips. The golden boy. The genius. The hope of the Dalton dynasty. Standing in the corner at his grandfather's party, unable to meet anyone's eyes, being offered charity by his average cousin. Sometimes life writes its own irony. You just have to live long enough to read it. A black SUV pulled into the driveway. I hadn't noticed it arriving. Everyone was too focused on Lily and Marcus. But now the driver's door opened, and one of Lily's assistants stepped out. She walked to the passenger side and opened the rear door. Pamela emerged. I barely recognized her. The woman who had spat in my face 15 years ago had been polished, prosperous, cruel in the way only the comfortable can be. This Pamela was thin, too thin. Her hair had gone gray at the temples. She wore clean but simple clothes that looked like they'd come from a donation bin, because they probably had. Pamela? Harold's voice cracked. Where have you been? We haven't heard from you in— 2 years, Dad. Pamela's voice was barely above a whisper. I've been in a women's shelter for 2 years. Richard took everything— the house, the savings, the investments. I didn't even have enough for a security deposit on an apartment. Vincent stepped forward. Why didn't you call? Why didn't you— I did call. Something flickered in Pamela's eyes. The ghost of the woman she used to be. I called you, Vincent, 3 times. You never called back. I called Dad. He said he was too busy dealing with Marcus's situation to help. Harold's face went white. His hands trembled on his oxygen tank. The only person who reached out, Pamela continued, her voice breaking, was the niece I spat on 15 years ago. Lily found me. Lily's foundation contacted me. Lily offered me help when my own family couldn't be bothered. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were wet. I didn't know what to feel. Vindication? Pity? Rage at the years of silence? The cruelty? The spit on my cheek? All of it. None of it. Something in between. Lily opened her briefcase. She pulled out a folder. Crisp, professional, bearing the logo of the Margaret Brennan Foundation in elegant green lettering. Everyone, she said, raising her voice so the whole backyard could hear. I'd like to make an announcement. The relatives shifted uncomfortably. Harold gripped his oxygen tank. Vincent and Barbara exchanged nervous glances. 6 months ago, I established the Margaret Brennan Foundation, named after my great-grandmother, the woman who made everything I've accomplished possible. Lily held up the folder. This foundation provides scholarships and vocational training to women in crisis, single mothers, survivors of domestic abuse, women who've been abandoned by their families and their systems. She turned to Pamela. Aunt Pamela, I'd like to offer you a place in our accounting certification program. 6 months of training completely free. We'll provide transitional housing during the program and job placement assistance afterward. If you complete the certification, you'll have the skills to rebuild your career. Pamela stared at the folder like it might bite her. I don't— She shook her head. I don't understand. After what I did to your mother. This isn't forgiveness. Lily's voice was clear as glass. What you did to my mom can never be undone. I remember the spit on her face. I remember the silence in that room. I remember you calling me average like it was a death sentence. The backyard was absolutely still, 30 witnesses holding their breath. But Grandmother Margaret believed everyone deserves a second chance, Lily continued. She gave me one when no one else would. This foundation is her legacy, not mine. And it's not about what you deserve, Aunt Pamela. It's about who I choose to be. She held out the folder. Pamela's hands were shaking as she took it. Tears streamed down her face. Genuine tears. The kind that can't be faked. I'm sorry, she whispered. Gina, I'm so sorry. I looked at my sister, at the woman she'd become, at the ruins of the person who'd once felt so superior. Keep the apology, I said quietly. Just don't waste the chance. Harold Dalton collapsed into his wicker chair. Not dramatically. His legs simply gave out, and he sat down hard, his oxygen tank clanking against the armrest. For a long moment he just stared at the ground, breathing heavily through his nose. Vincent rushed to his side. "Dad? Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Harold's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. I could see it in his face, the crumbling of something he'd built his entire life around. The hierarchy, the certainty, the unshakable belief that he'd always known best. He looked up at Lily, then at me, then back at his hands. "Margaret," he said slowly, and I realized he meant my grandmother. "Always said I was wrong about you, Gina." Something in my chest tightened. I'd waited 15 years to hear those words, dreamed about them in my weakest moments, imagined how they might sound. They sounded smaller than I expected. "She was right," I said. "But I don't need you to agree anymore, Dad. I stopped needing that a long time ago." Vincent tried to interject. "Dad, this is ridiculous. Marcus has potential." "Vincent," Harold's voice was sharp. "Stop." The golden child fell silent. For perhaps the first time in his life, Vincent Dalton had nothing to say. Harold sat there, surrounded by the family he'd tried to mold in his image, looking at the granddaughter he'd dismissed and the daughter he'd abandoned. His empire of expectations lay in pieces around him. He didn't apologize. I didn't expect him to. Men like my father don't apologize. Their pride won't allow it. But his silence said enough. "Margaret's watch," he finally said, pointing at my wrist with a trembling finger. "You still wear it?" I looked down at the scratched Timex. "Every day." He nodded once, said nothing more. Lily came to stand beside me, and I took her hand. 30 relatives watched us, some with shame, some with confusion, some with the dawning realization that they'd been on the wrong side of history for 15 years. "I didn't come here to get revenge," I said, and my voice carried across the silent backyard. "I came because my daughter asked me to, and I stayed because I wanted her to see something." I turned to face Lily, then back to the crowd. "I wanted her to see that success doesn't mean becoming the people who hurt you. It doesn't mean rubbing their faces in their mistakes or making them feel as small as they once made you feel." Pamela clutched her folder to her chest, tears still streaming. Marcus had retreated so far into the hedge, he was practically part of it. Vincent and Barbara stood frozen like statues in last season's clothes. "My daughter built a company worth $200 million, I continued. She could have bought this entire property and evicted everyone on it. She could have sent lawyers, made threats, taken what she wanted." I looked at Lily, and my heart swelled with something that had nothing to do with money, or helicopters, or business success. Instead, she started a foundation. She named it after the woman who believed in us, and she offered help to the people who hurt us, not because they deserved it, but because that's who she is. I squeezed my daughter's hand. "I used to think family meant taking whatever they dish out. I was wrong. Family is who shows up for you, not who shares your blood, and the blood we share doesn't obligate us to accept abuse." I turned toward the helicopter. "Goodbye, everyone. I don't expect we'll meet again." That was 6 months ago. Let me tell you what happened after. Pamela completed the accounting certification program. She graduated third in her class. Turns out, when you strip away the cruelty and the entitlement, there was a capable person buried underneath. She works as a bookkeeper now for a small firm in Atlanta. We're not close. I don't think we ever will be, but she sends Lily a card every Christmas. "Thank you for the second chance I didn't deserve." Marcus never took Lily up on her offer. He's still living with his parents. Vincent and Barbara moved into Harold's house after selling their last property. From what Eleanor tells me, he spends most of his time gaming and complaining about how the system is rigged against smart people. Some people can only learn lessons they're willing to hear. Vincent declared bankruptcy last year. The family home is mortgaged to the hilt, And there's talk of selling it to pay medical bills. The Dalton dynasty, 4 generations in the making, will end with assisted living payments and arguments about who gets the furniture. My father never apologized. Not that day, not since. Eleanor says he still talks about Marcus sometimes, still believes the boy will find his path. Some delusions are too comfortable to surrender. But he stopped talking about me entirely. And strangely, that feels like enough. As for Lily and me, she bought me a house last year. Nothing extravagant. 3 bedrooms, a garden I actually have time to tend now that I've retired early, a porch with a swing where I drink my coffee every morning. Mom, she said when she gave me the keys, you gave me everything. Let me give you something back. On the wall of my new living room, there's only one photograph. 2 women, mother and daughter, average and extraordinary, we're both smiling. These days, my life is quieter than it's ever been. I wake up without an alarm, something I couldn't do for 25 years of nursing shifts. I tend my garden, where tomatoes and basil grow alongside flowers I don't know the names of. I read books I never had time for. I volunteer at the hospital twice a week, not because I need to, but because I want to. Lily calls me every night, no matter how busy she is. GreenPath is preparing for an IPO next year. The projections say the company could be worth $500 million. My daughter, the CEO. My daughter, the one they said would never amount to anything. But here's what I want you to understand. The money isn't what matters. Last month, Eleanor Brennan passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 92. At her funeral, I found a letter she'd written for me years ago, tucked into her will. Inside was another letter, this one in my grandmother's handwriting, dated 3 months before she died. My dear Gina, it read, by the time you read this, I will be gone, and I hope you will have proven everyone wrong, including yourself. Your father sees the world through a lens I cannot change. He was raised to believe that women are supporting characters in men's stories. That is his tragedy, not yours. You are the heroine of your own story. So is Lily. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. All my love, always. Grandmother Margaret. I sat in my garden and cried for an hour. Not sad tears, grateful ones. My grandmother believed in me when no one else did. She protected my daughter before my daughter even existed. And somehow, across the barrier of death, she found a way to tell me one more time. I was enough. I always had been. So what's the lesson here? I've thought about it a lot, and I think it's this. You cannot make people see your value. You can only live it. For years, I tried to earn my father's approval. I excelled in school. I built a career. I raised a daughter alone. None of it mattered to him, not because my achievements weren't real, but because his vision was broken. He couldn't see what he'd decided not to look for. I wasted so much energy trying to prove myself to someone incapable of being convinced. If you're watching this, if you've been the overlooked one, the average one, the child who never quite fit the mold your family wanted, I want you to know something. Their blindness is not your failure. Your worth is not determined by people who refuse to see it. It never was. Some people will only value you when you no longer need their validation, and by then, their opinion won't matter anyway. Set your boundaries, protect your peace, walk away from tables where you're not welcome, and build your own table instead. You don't have to prove them wrong. You just have to prove yourself right, to yourself. My grandmother knew that. Lily learned it. I'm still learning it, every day, in my garden with my coffee and my scratched Timex watch. Some apologies never come. Some families never change. Some golden children never learn to fail, and some fathers never learn to see. But you can learn to let that be their loss, not yours. Lily landed a helicopter on my father's lawn last month. But the real victory wasn't the helicopter or the company or the money. The real victory was knowing, finally, completely, irrevocably, that we had never needed them at all. We just needed us. Before I go, I want to share something a therapist once told me about my father. Harold isn't a monster, she said. He's a product. He was raised in a generation that taught men their worth came from legacy, from sons, from inheritance, from family names on buildings. Daughters were investments in other families. Sons were investments in yourself. She helped me understand that my father's cruelty wasn't personal, it was programming. 3 generations of Southern patriarchy, distilled into one man who genuinely believed he was doing what was right for the family. That understanding doesn't excuse what he did. It doesn't erase the spit on my face or the years of silence or the way he looked at Lily like she was nothing, but it explains it. An explanation helped me let go of the anger that was eating me alive. My father will die believing he was right. Marcus will probably spend his life blaming everyone else. Vincent will keep chasing the success that always slips away. That's their story. It doesn't have to be mine. If you're holding on to rage at someone who hurt you, a parent, a sibling, a family that failed you, I want you to know you're allowed to let that go. Not for them, for you. Carrying someone else's poison doesn't punish them. It only burns you. That's my story. If it touched something in you, I'd love to hear yours. Drop a comment below, or just hit like if you're not ready to share yet. Either way, you matter. You always did. And if you want more stories like this, check the description for others that might resonate with you. Thank you for listening. Really. My name is Gina Dalton. I was the wrong child in a family that only valued sons, and I turned out just fine.